What's up, my beautiful friends? I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Anya Light, and I'm here today to explore with you the hidden link between psychedelics and trauma. This may be something you've never heard of before. In fact, I guarantee most of us who are watching this video, this will be maybe a bit shocking, actually. But Spirit laid it on my heart to share this message with you, so here I am. All right, first I want to preface this video by saying that I have an enormous amount of deep gratitude to psychedelics for my personal awakening journey. Psychedelics were absolutely instrumental in me perceiving higher wisdom. Instrumental in me breaking out of socially conditioned boxes, instrumental in me expanding my mind to different concepts, different ideas, different things that are, different than what socially acceptable society deems to be true. So I just want to put that first and say that I am so grateful to psychedelics. I would absolutely not be where I am on my journey without them. They were a very crucial part, and they've been a very crucial part for many souls who are extremely respectable. Ram Dass, my mentor, being one of them. Ram Dass, widely known enlightened being who started his spiritual journey off with magic mushrooms. And you can go online and hear all about that story. But there's been so many of us who have used these substances to attain higher wisdom. So I want to start off with that gratitude. And then also want to preface this by saying that I'm making this video to help those of you out there who are healing through trauma, or maybe you have a friend or a loved one who has experienced a lot of trauma and they're working through it right now. So by drawing these two topics together, I'm hoping to help speed up the healing process for all of us. Okay, so psychedelics. First of all, psychedelics, they're going mainstream now. Really incredible. 10 years ago, if someone would have told me that cannabis would be recreationally legal in Ohio in 10 years, I'd be like, yeah, right, that's never going to happen in Ohio, but it's happened. So it's becoming really socially acceptable to use cannabis, and I live in a very conservative, tiny little village of 1,000 people in the cornfields of Ohio, and just literally down the street, there's a little tea shop, and they sell amanita mushrooms, these beautiful psychedelic medicines that help people in a variety of ways. One way people use them is to help get better sleep. So that's like legal, and it's like right down the street. And actually the owner of the shop is a Christian. So, I mean, psychedelics are becoming just normalized in our society. I'll speak for the United States. In the United States, it's becoming normalized, which is amazing and really speaks to how quickly our consciousness is evolving right now. And that's very wonderful. At the same time, if you are like me and you wish to be a trailblazer in this world, a healer, if you are, someone who likes to continually push the envelope and guide others along the path, then you're probably like me, and you're starting to either question your usage of psychedelics, or you have actively stopped using psychedelics for a different reason or another. But maybe you're looking to, connect with those who are on a similar path. So while it is beautiful that the mainstream is embracing psychedelics for healing purposes and for spiritual enlightenment purposes, at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, if something is becoming mainstream, might it be time for some of us to move on? Not to judge the mainstream, but just to say that those of us who are blazing the trail, what new trails can we blaze? So moving into the trauma discussion, trauma likewise has become mainstream, which is absolutely so needed. It's becoming normalized for example, children, adult people who have, as children, grew up in dysfunctional, abusive homes to publicly share the information now. I cut ties with my toxic family. I am, IFC PTSD, complex or childhood PTSD, and I'm open about that, and I'm looking to connect with like-minded others who are on that similar journey. It's talking about being traumatized is no longer a stigma like it used to be. It's becoming normal, and that's great. That's amazing. We need to keep having those conversations more and more so that we can empower each other to move into higher states of consciousness. So that's amazing. So this hidden, I'll get to the point. You're like, what's the link? Why are you making me wait so long, Anya? But so the hidden link between trauma, surprising link might be to you, trauma and psychedelics. So when we go through a big traumatic incident, whether a one-time deal, such as maybe like a rape or a beating or a car accident or something like a one-time incident, or whether it's a series of traumatic incidences, maybe over the course of a whole childhood, over the course of a whole marriage or something like that, we have these breaks in our normal state of perception. And the universe so cleverly has created these human forms, these dense bodies out of energy. So we are all made of energy. That is the new quantum model of reality that science is embracing at this time. We're no longer looking at the Newtonian model of atoms and molecules as being the building blocks of life. We're looking at energy now. Energy is coming to be accepted now in mainstream thought now, that what we are made of, this body and everything that we see around us, every object, that we see around us is made of 99.99999% energy and something like 0.01% of matter. So what we are primarily is energy. And energy creates the body through the auric field. So, and this is a complex topic, but just in a nutshell, the universe is derived, all the objects that we see in the universe ultimately comes from source, which is this centralized point of energy in the universe. The energy flows down and then it steps down, 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 down. You can kind of think of it like a, like if you're plugging a circuit or a electrical gadget into the wall, you need like a point of contact between the plug and then the energy flowing, right? So there's this like outlet where this transformation of energy happens, right? So this transformation of energy to create a human body is the aura. So there's this egg-shaped energy surrounding the body. And some people can see auras. Certain psychics can actually have the ability with their naked eyes to see auras. So aura is this sort of, it can extend 2 feet up to like 12 feet. With some people, depending on how strong their energy is, you can feel their aura much farther out. But generally speaking, it's like a couple feet out from the body. So this aura actually gives life to this physical form. And in the past, we tended to think of the body creates the aura. No, it's the other way around. The aura is the building blocks of this human form. And so what's in the aura creates this physical form. And so the aura also acts as a kind of shield and a buffer between yourself and the rest of the universe. So there's certain things that are happening in the universe around you that you cannot perceive because your aura at the state of evolution that your aura is at, it's not possible for you yet to perceive with your senses what's going on. So for example, I have a good friend down the street who's a medium, and she can see and feel and sense ghosts, spirits. Most people can't, but that's where she has evolved to. That's her ability. And so her aura, the evolution, if you will, of her aura, gives her that ability to perceive what's happening around her, while others of us cannot yet perceive. So, what happens when you have a traumatic event is a tear or a hole is created in the aura. And this happens because the physical body is so shaken. It's such an abrupt thing that this tear in the aura is created. Now, how do I know this? I know this because for the past 8 years, I have been blessed to work in a domestic violence shelter for women. And I have seen again and again, how these women oftentimes are the most intuitive, spiritually wise, and gifted psychics that I've ever literally met. You would think it would be the opposite, right? They've gone through this horror. They've just escaped their husband that's tried to murder them. Some of these women have been trafficked. I mean, awful, literally beyond horrifying situations that they have escaped from. Escaped from torture, literally sometimes. And then they come to me and we have like a private session, a one-on-one session. And I start explaining things, for example, like the chakras or reincarnation or like some like pretty intense subject matter. And a lot of times, you know what happens? They sit in front of me and they've read 0 books on the topic and had 0 conversations with anyone else in their lives about it. Because I live in a very kind of conservative place in the United States. So this isn't quite the talk of the town yet. But I'll be sitting in front of them explaining these like concepts, or I'll be explaining how Reiki works, or explaining how spirit guides works, or channeling, or these like high concepts. And as I'm explaining them, this is their expression. Yeah, I know. Yep. And I'm like, how do you know? And they're like, I don't know. I just know. The reason and the way that they know this information is because when they have had experienced that shock to the system, that rape, for example, a part of their soul, a part of the spark that makes them flees the body. Literally flees, because it cannot handle and process what is happening. It's too dark. It's too awful. It's too just, it's bad. Okay. So part of their soul flees the body and it shoots out and creates a break, a hole, a tear in the aura. And, in a sense, part of their soul shoots out into the universe to escape the traumatic experience. So when you've sometimes heard of it like disassociation, right? Like someone who's being like beaten up or, you know, undergoing this very stressful situation, they kind of start floating off, like their brain just kind of like goes off. And where do they go? Well, they are literally, part of them is leaving their body. They're disassociating from this human form because it's too painful to be here, and they're shooting off into the universe as a way to keep themselves safe on some level. So because that break in the aura happens, a large amount of information then floods into their system. So you could think of it as like a cosmic download that they receive. Now, some people that I work with, obviously, this is not everybody that has the ability to accept that information. Some receive the information and they reject it because it doesn't align with the belief system that they have, and that's okay and perfectly fine. But I'm telling you, a lot of the most traumatized individuals that I have ever met are also the ones who have this innate understanding of very high spiritual concepts. Again, they didn't read it in books. It's just they know. But they don't often know how they know. They just know. They often know how to do energy healing innately. They're often, by the way, diagnosed as having like multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar, these different labels. And that's a whole other subject. But at the deepest level, these people are truly, truly gifted. And while I would not, of course, ever wish trauma on anybody, ever, I also recognize that it can come with some unexpected gifts. So trauma creates holes in the aura by which cosmic wisdom, cosmic information can then flood into the human form. Interestingly enough, this is also the mechanism behind psychedelics. So how does psychedelics work? People will ask, like, how does it work? Like, how, is it just a hallucination? No. You take a substance. By the way, anything that rapidly changes your mood or perception, I would actually consider to be a psychedelic. I know some people wouldn't call it that necessarily, but anything that rapidly changes your perception, we could even just call it a drug. Let's just call it a drug just to make things simple. So we could even classify it honestly like chocolate, coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, and then like magic mushrooms or DMT or cannabis or you name it, into these categories. So any kind of drug, the mechanism of action, how it works is there is a puncture, a hole, a tear in the aura. And the aura, again, is this sort of like bubble around you, and it's like a barrier, it's a boundary, it's a protection. And there's a hole that is pierced through. And then this is how information from other dimensions gets in, and our mind changes and we can perceive things that we normally would not be able to perceive. We can take a psychedelic journey and suddenly see aliens. We can suddenly hear messages from our deceased relatives. We can get downloads and information about how the cosmos works. We're getting that because there's this hole, and this information is then coming through. So along with the good information, many of us have had the experience of using cannabis, for example, and we get really high and happy, right? That's the information from the angelic realms that's flooding into our system, but also on a dime, we can go into the paranoid trip. That is through the hole in the aura. We have the information coming in from the hell realms, from the demonic realms of the universe. That's coming in too. So it's a mixed bag, as you all know, because a psychedelic journey can turn dark quite quickly, because not only are we receiving and opening ourselves up to information from the happy light-filled realms, but we're also opening ourselves to the dark-filled realms too. So that's the mechanism of action for both trauma and psychedelics. And this information was given to me a couple years ago by actually my main spirit guide that I work with. And then I later did information on the internet just to confirm what I was told. And sure enough, there are many other teachers who talk about this as well. I'm not the only one. But trauma and psychedelics do have that in common. So psychedelics, when we use psychedelics, let me backtrack and say, as I said, psychedelics have been a huge part of my journey for a really long time, actually, because for a long time, I was healing through a tremendous amount of trauma. And to be honest with you, psychedelics gave me this glimpse into these higher dimensions. And it was a relief. It was very needed. It was medicine for me. And I was blessed to work with different shamans, different spiritual teachers who guided me on the path. And so for me, it wasn't about partying. It was about spiritual awakening. At the same time, a couple years ago, the information started to come through that it was time for me to set psychedelics aside, which was really confusing for me because I had created some very deep spiritual connections with the spirit of these different plants. If, as a side note, you are working with psychedelics, I really encourage you to get a teacher, get a mentor, someone who can guide you, because there are beings out there, teachers, shamans, who have a very special connection to these plants, and they can help you to get the most out of your experience. It's very difficult to work with these plants if you are at the beginning stages of your evolution, your spiritual journey. It can be really confusing and take a long time to figure it all out. But if you work with a guide, it can quickly, you can advance on your path quite quickly. So, but with that having been said, at the same time, I think it's important to say, what are the risks of using psychedelics? There's always going to be, no matter what substance you take that quickly alters the mind, a downfall, a side effect, a negative thing inherent within it. Why? Because, well, the universe knows that it's so easy to, chew something, smoke something, snort something, if that was all that spiritual awakening was, then we would all just be using substances all the time. But the universe, in its infinite wisdom and love for us, wants to give us an easier way. We don't want to always have to be dependent on using something outside of ourselves to feel better, right? So we want to move in the direction of becoming fully capable of sourcing those higher states of consciousness within ourselves without having to ingest anything physical, right? That's empowering, right? If you can find those states of bliss within yourself through breath work, through meditation, through energy work, through mantra, through prayer, through music, through being in nature, these different things, then cool, we'll never be without those things, because we won't have to, pay money to get those substances or grow them or acquire them in some way. Like, we can just have it ourselves without anything extra from the outside needed. So the universe knows what it's doing. So the universe does give us these beautiful plant medicines, these beautiful psychedelics, but it's only meant to be a temporary experience on the journey, because we are eventually meant to transcend them. And once this information started coming through to me a couple years ago, I will admit it was a long journey of me releasing these substances, because for me, they were my lifeboat for years. Healing through my CPTSD for many years, they were absolutely necessary for me on the journey just to survive in this world. But I started to get this message that no, it's time to gently release these substances and learn to self-source those states of consciousness within yourself. So what I did was I started to gradually release these substances very mindfully, and I would test the universe. Is this really true? Do I really need to let these go? And I started to observe some things. So I wanted to share with you, some common after effects of using psychedelics. So you can start to observe in yourself that this is happening. So one is, after you use a psychedelic, you're going to be extremely oversensitive for the next couple of days, if not the next couple of weeks. Overly sensitive to sight, sound, smell. Things are just going to be more intense, which is going to make it more difficult to be in like public places or around groups of people, or like, let's say, be around music that you dislike because maybe it's disharmonious to you, or being around like TV shows, or just being around cell towers, being around certain places that naturally have a lower vibe anyway, but after you use psychedelics, you're extra sensitive. It's because you've got this hole in your aura that is allowing, the shield around you has been torn. So that manifests as like an oversensitivity, which can be really draining and give us headaches. It can just make us feel fatigued and just cranky and irritable, and maybe we don't really realize why. Another thing is strange sleep phenomenon. So for me, what manifested, and I know this is true for many people as well, is after using a psychedelic medicine and using psychedelic in a very sacred way, not like, oh, I'm going to have fun on a Friday night. No, I'm going to set an intention. I'm going to, light candles. I'm going to meditate while I'm doing it. I did everything in a good way. However, even with that, this did not shield me from the negative side effects. I would often have sleep terrors for days or weeks after using a psychedelic. Nightmares, intense nightmares, but sleep terrors where literally, that in between state of you're not quite asleep and you're not quite awake. I would see, feel, and hear demons around me. And again, that's because the tear in the aura was allowing these creatures from these hell realms to come through, and I would then perceive it. But what I realized is if I didn't have psychedelics for a few months in my system, those would disappear. I wouldn't be sensing that. So maybe you've experienced like where you're laying in bed trying to fall asleep and then you just feel out of nowhere like a cold air or like this creepy feeling. Like you just suddenly feel weird and you don't know why. Like you suddenly feel afraid and you don't know why. That's the energy of one of these darker beings who they kind of come at you when you're halfway awake and halfway asleep, when you're at your most vulnerable. And they're able to pierce the veil between worlds because of this hole in your aura. So the hole in the aura can also just generally cause anxiety and just a general feeling of confusion. And a feeling of weakness sometimes, and even weakening the immune system as well. So there's a lot of negative side effects. One simple one is mood. Oh goodness, my love of cacao is unprecedented. I know that in many other lifetimes I was a shaman in South America and distributed cacao as a sacrament. However, it also had a dark side. That substance, also known as chocolate, is extremely addicting. And in this lifetime, it manifested as an addiction. Anyway, what I noticed, is cacao, chocolate sends me into these states of bliss and ecstasy. But in the days following, I'm cranky. I'm in a crap mood. I feel down. So what I realized is that here's the baseline. Let's imagine that this is the level that you, generally speaking, are at mood-wise, okay? This is your general baseline of how you typically are feeling mood-wise. Then you ingest, let's say, chocolate or cacao. Ooh, you jump up here. Oh, that's great. I feel so great. Wow, everything looks shiny and unicorns and sparkles, and I'm suddenly smiling and dancing and singing. That's so great. Well, then when it starts to come out of your system and your liver starts to process and detox from that substance, the amount that you shot up is the exact amount and exact proportion that you're going to shoot down below your baseline. Okay, so you shot up here, which felt really fun in the moment. Well, you came up this far, you're going to come down exactly this far. So it's like the universe balances it out. You're going to go low for the next day or two. So for me, I started to be like, what is the point of that? Like, I'd rather just stay at my baseline, and through practices such as yoga, Reiki, meditation, prayer, slowly and incrementally raise my baseline naturally without any come down, right? You could generally say there's no negative come down from yoga or prayer or meditation. These things naturally bring our baseline up, 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 up in slower increments, of course, than, taking, some kind of psychedelic. Woo, we go up real high, but then, woo, we really crash. So what's the point of that, right? So we start to see like, oh, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And again, I give the deepest love and admiration to psychedelics on my journey because, like I said, they were extremely instrumental to me, to learning about the spirit world, to getting out of old conditioned paradigms from society. I mean, I could go on, but just to give you an overview, like, they were amazing for me. And then it was time to move on. So right now, my job is to speak up, because I think right now, for better or worse, our culture is in a very positive place with psychedelics. Yes, this is the future of medicine. And, we're getting, lots of psychologists who are ordering different psychedelic medicines for their patients, and it's completely out in the open and legal and socially respectable. At the same time, we have to ask ourselves, what are the consequences? What are the costs? And like I said, trauma, moments of trauma, psychedelics, the mechanism of action is they pierce holes in the aura in which other information, sensations from other dimensions comes through and quickly changes our mental state. But what we want long term as spiritual beings on this awakening path is to engage in activities that allow us to self-source our own joy and bliss and peace, which then will patch up those holes in our aura. Now, anybody can patch up holes in their aura over time. It's not like you're forever going to be broken. You can learn different techniques. You can learn energy work. You can do meditation a lot. You can do different things and quite quickly actually start to patch up those holes. Totally, you're going to be fine. But going forward, just to say, if you still feel called to partake of psychedelics, I invite you to observe in the days and weeks following a psychedelic or medicine journey. How do you feel? Do you feel overly sensitive? Do you feel just anxious? Do you feel like your body is fatigued? Do you feel like your organs kind of feel sluggish? How's your mood? Are you snapping at people? Do you feel like you have patience with people? Just observe and ask yourself, like, what am I really feeling? And for those of you energetically sensitive beings out there, do meditations where while you're doing psychedelics and after, you close your eyes and you ask your spirit guides to show you what's happening in your aura, and they'll show you. So don't just take my word for it. Investigate yourself. And I know that eventually all of us will come to the point where what seems the most appealing and enticing to us is to raise our vibration naturally through not having to take an external substance and strengthening our aura. Because when our aura is bright and thick and strong, that is how we heal the world. There's many of those old-fashioned, they're not all old-fashioned, but like pictures of Jesus and Buddha and different saints, and they all have the halo. That's their aura. That's literally visible and radiating outwards. And many people will tell you that when they see an enlightened being, they see this white glow around them. And that's an aura that is strong and whole and not full of holes. It is vibrant and healthy and whole. So that is the journey that we are all heading in. And so depending on where you're at in the journey, this may be just food for thought, or you may think, Anya, you're nuts, but maybe this is a seed for another lifetime. But feels very important that I share this information with you. So, and if you are somebody who has experienced trauma in your life and are currently working through it, one of the most empowering things that I can recommend is realizing that we can take the information that we gain, those downloads through the hole in the aura, we can keep that, and then we can work on healing the aura through spiritual practice, energy healing, different spiritual work, and then we can retain the information that we received, which will help us. And then going forward, we can receive more information, more downloads in peaceful ways. But just to recognize that everything that happens to us in our journey is a gift. And it's a gift if we choose to view it that way. All right. Well, thank you for listening to this video. And please, in the comments below, I would love to hear where you're at on your awakening journey. Have you started to notice some of the downsides to psychedelics? Have you noticed some of the things that I'm saying in terms of like having had traumatic situations and then noticing like different energies bombarding you, or unexplained knowledge that you just don't know how you know something, but you know it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below if any of this resonates. And I'm wishing you all the most love ever, ever, ever. Peace, love, and blessings to all of you. Bye for now.